Please welcome ICMI's Professional Development Director, Joy Sabani.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are thrilled to have you here at ACE today, and I hope you're enjoying the event so far. We're grateful to once again have the support of Salesforce.com as a diamond sponsor of ACE. This is their third year providing our luncheon keynote, and they never fail to provide great insight. I'm sure this year will be no exception as they present Facebook to Case to Close, Going Social with Your Customer Service Strategy, which features a case study from Kip Wetzel of Comcast. To kick things off, please help me welcome Fergus Griffin, Vice President of Salesforce.com.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome everybody to ACE 2011 and welcome to this lunchtime keynote. We're really excited to be here as a key sponsor of this event. Our third time here, and every time we get great insights from you, the attendees, and just hearing the latest discussions as to what's going on for you all in the contact center world. My name is Fergus Griffin, and I drive the product strategy at Salesforce.com for our Service Cloud product line, which is all about contact centers and customer service and support. For your reference, if you're trying to get a gauge, we have about 15,000 customers, and we're always glad to kind of talk to other folks who are doing similar things to hear where you think the market's going. I'm going to be joined on stage today by Kip Wetzel. And Kip works at Comcast and is a social media servicing and strategy lead there. And he's going to share some really key insights about what Comcast has done as a company to take their customer service strategy social. We're going to talk about three key things today. The first, we're going to talk about what's happening in the social world and how it's actually starting to directly affect the contact center strategy itself. Second of all, Kip is going to come up here and take the second piece of our agenda and talk about what Comcast has actually done to take its customer service strategy social across all the different channels that their customers are now interacting on. And the third piece will be myself and Kip both sharing some insights around the bottom and top line benefits you can expect to get from using social media as part of your service strategy, but also more broadly across your company. Before I go any further, how many people here would say they believe that social media is going to directly affect how they do business with their customers in the future? A show of hands, please. Great. Keep your hands up now. Now, how many of you would say that it's going to, as a result, affect what you need to do in the contact center in how you interact with your customers? Great. Now, keep your hands up if you feel like you've got a good handle on what you are going to do in your contact center to interact with these customers on social channels. Okay? Well, we're all in the right room today, I think, then. So that's why we're here trying to provide some of the insights that we have from talking to maybe some of the first mover companies about what they're doing to really go social in this new world. So let's look at the challenge first of all. What really is going on in the social world that really demands a response from the customer service organization? This is the challenge that every company is now facing. The traditional contact centers that we've had around when the 1-800 world was really kind of what customer service is all about, and then maybe adding email, those contact centers are not geared for this new social world. They're not geared for the fact that people are going to Google to get answers instead of picking up the phone. They're not geared for the fact that people are going to Facebook to ask their friends questions. And they're not geared for the fact that people are expressing their opinion publicly and openly in real time on channels like Twitter and on blogs and on discussion forums. And it's getting worse. If you think of that not being something that's easy to tackle, the volumes are unprecedented. 700 million users on Facebook. I heard Facebook talking the other day about how, you know how they measure customer adoption? What percentage of the planet are using Facebook? That's their metric for product adoption. Really gives you a sense of the scale that they're thinking on. Over 100 million tweets a day. And you might say, well, all those tweets don't relate to me, or those Facebook users aren't my customers. But some of them may be, and a lot of them probably are. And one of the challenges is, why do you listen, sift out the signal from the noise to figure out what's important, who's talking about your products and services, and how do you engage with them? Second of all, service has gone public. Many people almost say that customer service is the new marketing. Because in the past, when you were talking to an agent on the phone, a customer has a one-on-one private conversation. Now a lot of customer service interactions are happening in the open for everyone to see. And how you treat customers is there for everyone to appraise and determine just what level of service you're giving as an organization to your valued customers. Finally, how many people have some kind of mobile device on them that you would consider a smart mobile device? Great. And these social mobile devices, loaded with social apps, over 50 million iPads scheduled to be sold this year. We're really seeing that mobile adoption is furthering the real-time feedback on social channels. And these three challenges, the fact that it's a massive amount of volume, it's in public, and it's real-time through mobile channels, really are raising the bar for what's required. You've probably all heard some of the classic examples, and we all have our own favorite or least favorite examples, but there is definitely a list up there of some of the most highest profile, what we would consider almost social media casualties, people who have had challenges with how they've been perceived on social. You can think of your favorite example here. Some of these you may recognize. What I'd like to underscore about this is that these are all great companies. Many of them actually have a social strategy, but maybe they had a misstep, or maybe one of their employees wasn't clear on what the etiquette was as an employee of a company and how they should represent being an employee of that company. And so they've got caught out in different ways. But suffice to say that I think most people in this room do not want their company to want to end up in this gallery. And so the question is, what do you do? How do you really start? What do you do in your contact center to start to connect with customers on social channels? What's a first practical step to actually really start to engage in a useful way? Well, it helps to start by thinking about a world that we already know. If you think about the phone-based channel of customer service, which I imagine most people here are familiar with from the contact center titles that we see of people attending here, we all know that basically we're talking about a simple process at its core. We're listening for calls through your switch or through your PBX, whatever you're thinking about. That gets handled by your agents through the queue, and there's agent routing and assignment. And you're measuring. Measurement is key. The metrics are the way we gauge the success of how we're dealing with the customers and how they're perceiving the service we provide. Things like call volume, average handle time, first contract resolution. These are all kind of terms that we're all familiar with, and we know that many of these are kind of determine how we're, what people think of the job we're doing in our contact center roles. So if we're familiar with this, how does that start to apply with the social world? And how can you take some of that and say, well, our process could look very similar. Without throwing everything out, we could apply this to the social world of our customers. So it's slightly different in the social world, but not much. If you were to blend social into the same process, it looks like this. Whether you're monitoring customers on Twitter or YouTube or Facebook, there are now tools that you can use for listening to tweets and posts. For handling social conversations, it's not just an email conversation that's private or a phone call that's private. It's a social conversation that's happening in a comment stream on Facebook or in private or public Twitter conversations or in discussion forums. This is where the conversation is now being handled in the social world. But it's still a process that you need to be able to kind of run through your customer service process that you already have. And then finally, measuring. We still have things like volume and average handle time, but there are new things that are part of the social world for customer service. Things like trending topics. In the social world, what are people talking about when they're talking about my company? Are they talking about a specific product? Is there a specific issue that we see coming up again and again? Do certain areas or demographics seem to have this on their mind? What channels are they using? Are they on Twitter? Are they on Facebook? That's one of the things we often talk to our customers about. You may not need to be on every social channel, because one of the first things is to figure out where your customers are choosing to look for service, and then prioritize which ones are most important to you as a company. Things like influence. Social media has really raised the importance of knowing the influence that an individual customer has on the rest of your customer community. What's really interesting is that people don't have to be anyone special to call attention in a big way to how you're treating them. And we've seen celebrities, but we've also seen unknown people raise the profile of the service they've gotten from a given company. And sentiment. How do people feel about your company? How do they perceive you in terms of the service you're delivering? But this is a classic cycle that we see a lot of the first mover companies start to employ. They're thinking of their customer service, and they're blending social into that so that their agents can use the same tools they've always used, like case management and knowledge bases, as part of how they handle a case or an issue that gets raised on social channels. So if all of this seems kind of theoretical, I'd like to switch over to the video now, and I'm going to talk through a quick example of what this would actually look like in reality for a customer on Facebook and then your agent in the contact center. So what we're looking at right now here is we're going to bring up an example of a person on Facebook, okay? And this person is a guy named Mick Hogan. He's on his Facebook page. He has a question about a product from a company named Cirrus Computers. He can first of all go to Cirrus Computers' Facebook wall. As a company, they have a Facebook presence, and he can place his question here. He's looking about upgrading the memory on his laptop. He posts it. It's now in public. Everyone can see that question. Now, the agent experience looks like this. You can track the conversations that are going on places like Facebook and Twitter right here, and you can automatically search down to specific conversations about a product type, and there's a case that's automatically created based on the content of that post. You can click into the case, see who it's from, the source, the subject, and just like you would on the phone, you can now browse a knowledge base, find a knowledge article that solves a problem, attach it to this post that you're going to send back out to Facebook. You attach it. For those of you familiar with Bitly links, it's a shortened link. You click send. It stores the conversation here so you have this insight for next time. And back on the Facebook wall, your answer lands on your company page, but also on the page of that user with the link attached there. And the customer sees that you respond. And of course, all their friends see it too. And they can see that you're responding on these channels, not just the traditional ones. You're going to where your customers are. So if we can go back to the slides now, please. So that was a quick example of what that cycle can look like, from listening to actually how you handle it through the agent process, and then how you can record that and have it as an insight for next time as part of a conversation that's been stored. I think one important thing to remember here is that we often think that a lot of the social media stories are kind of like the reactive ones, where something bad happens and you're almost in firefighting mode to kind of quell the bad perception about your company. But great social strategies and service aren't just reactive. They're proactive. So we saw another name get added to the list this week, another great company, but a misstep in how they treated some of their customers. And I presume everybody heard about the Delta Airlines story. This was a tricky moment for them in terms of how they treated some of the military coming back and charging them extra baggage handling fees. But this is one bad story. A YouTube video gets posted within 12 hours, has 200,000 views, and it's on national TV. And there's several things they could have done potentially to kind of preempt this. But it's a tough story for a great company, but it's important to see that no company is untouchable in this world where service is happening out in the open now. And I would contrast that with more of a virtuous cycle, where you can look and see that if you're proactive and join the conversation, reach out, engage, find where your customers are, and actually begin a dialogue. You're not messaging or trying to manage or control. You're engaging authentically with the customers on the channels they prefer. You have an opportunity to really delight these customers and increase key metrics like Net Promoter Score and lifetime value and customer referral likelihood. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand it over now to Kip, who's going to talk a bit about what Comcast are actually doing in the service space and what they've done to really go social with their customer service. Kip.
Thanks, Fergus. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Like Fergus, I'm really pleased to be here. It seems to be a wonderful event, and to be here with Salesforce is a great opportunity for Comcast. I work in our National Customer Operations Group. And titles aside, I think I'm one of the lucky people who can say that they love their job. I love what I do for my company, for our customers, and I think what we do on social media really embodies why I feel so lucky to be in my job. So where Fergus talked a lot about the divide of companies between where customers are and where companies are on social, I want to focus it to you guys as consumers in the marketplace. How many of you, not as companies but as individuals, are on Facebook and have a Facebook account? Okay. And how about on Twitter? How many of you have a Twitter account? It's a little bit smaller. I think that's very inverse to what we saw in some of the social strategies from your companies. And at the heart of it, seeing 50 to 60% of the room raise their hands, that's why Comcast got into the social space. Our customers were there, and we felt we needed to be there too. So what do we do in social, right? How have we gone from a large company and translating a lot of our traditional support areas into the social media world, the social customer service world? We support tens of thousands of customers monthly across a myriad of tools. We process a couple thousand emails a month through one team, Twitter, Facebook, internal help and support forums, sort of a peer-to-peer, customer-to-customer support area, external forums, as well as blogs. In the month of April, I believe the stat we got from Radian6, a Salesforce-owned tool, was there were 350,000 unique mentions of Comcast in 1 month. So the tools that we have, the tools that we employ, the wide range of social media tools that we use fundamentally come down to one thing. The team that I work with, the team that I oversee, the goal that we have is to meet consumers on the platforms that they're most comfortable. If someone's already using Twitter on a mobile device, if someone's on their laptop using Facebook, why would we route them off to an alternate help channel? We want to be there to ensure that we can give them the help on their terms on the platforms that they're most comfortable. And fundamentally, that's our goal, to strive to do that every day. But take a step back. We've gotten into this space. We've had a heavy presence for the last few years. But why did we get into this space? The first thing we wanted to do, to reiterate what Fergus had said, is we wanted to listen. Before we took any action, before we posted any tweet, created a Facebook page, we got out there and we listened. Hearing what customers were saying, getting their raw feedback, getting organic, natural conversation about our brand, our products, the services that people use every single day, was really important for us to be there as a company to listen. I think sometimes there's a perception that large companies, large brands talk at consumers, tell them what to think. We wanted to shift that and really start listening to the voice of the consumer. So before we took any action, we were there listening. Next, once we sort of got a handle of what was going on in the space, where our customers really were, what they were doing, how they were speaking about us, we wanted to create a presence. There's a great book from the Forrester Research Group called Groundswell. We wanted to have a presence with the Groundswell. We know we can't control it. And the concept of Groundswell, if you're not familiar, is that communities of people, like-minded people, the consumer, can sway businesses, social causes, societal causes even. But Comcast really wanted to have a presence in those fields. So not just listening and not just hearing what people were saying, but really have an active presence with those communities. The next social driver for us to really dive into this social customer service space was we wanted to help. We wanted to provide assistance to people that may have mentioned their service, a product, an inquiry about how to set parental controls on their video on demand service. We wanted to do real-time, public-facing assistance for our customers. Really important for us to be able to be there, and not just be there, but be there to lend a hand. And finally, similar to helping, is we wanted to make a difference, right? And I think that oftentimes those things would be synonymous, but making a difference for the individual, for us, actually had a very strong ripple effect. Making a difference for that individual, in turn, had a difference for how they perceived our customer service, which in turn may have an effect on how they perceive their value from Comcast. So when you layer in what that one answer to a question can do for the Groundswell, it's really important to really understand that this is a massive undertaking, and the social media approach is not just a trend, it's here, and it's here to stay. And Comcast has really built all of this into their social or their service strategy, and is really putting social media as a core tenet of their overall approach to service. So, again, one more step back. How did we actually get the buy-off to be able to do this? What did it take for us to talk to our executive team, talk to our leadership, and say, we're going to go out and we're going to start tweeting publicly and posting on Facebook and creating YouTube videos that we're going to actually go out there and do it? How did we approach that? So how do you create a business case? How can you leave today and actually take some things away from this to create a business case for your respective organization? To further reiterate what I said before, if you haven't already, go out there. Listen to customers. You can use free tools to monitor what's going on across the entire social platform, Twitter, Facebook, Quora, blogs. It's out there. The best way to approach this is to start by listening. Next, almost as important, take real examples from your customers. You know your products, you know your consumers. Being able to create a tangible takeaway for your executive team that says, this is what our consumers are saying. Either current customers or maybe potential customers. What's being said about our competitors? Take those examples, gather them up. And I think those things almost help you outline an opportunity. More important than a formal business case, maybe more important than a true ROI. To get that buy-in, show your stakeholders, show your leadership, what is the opportunity by playing in the social realm to provide customer service. Those big, broad brushstroke opportunities are sometimes the most evident things that people haven't looked at and can actually help drive the overall business case later and get the buy-in from your executives. But the broad brushstroke, what people are saying in the business world, doesn't always apply. So how do you create a strategy? Think about the approach. Define the competitive landscape. What are other people doing there? What's going on from the consumers who are talking about you? Put it together with the fundamental approach that you're going to have with how you're going to represent your brand, how you're going to represent customer service. We talk, again, we use the mantra of there is no one size fits all in customer social service. Do what's right for your company, do what's right for your products, do what's right for your consumers, and take that and define it into a very concrete social strategy. That serves as the foundation for all efforts that you do. And by putting that strategy together, it really drives home the importance of how social customer service can actually influence the rest of your organization and play a role in your customer support. And I think the strategy, the examples, they work really, really well for marketing officers, for PR. They were great. But when you have to go to your CFO and ask for dollars and cents, you have to show the P&L. Create an ROI. What is that ROI for you? There will be some qualitative ROI. There will be some quantitative ROI. And you have to think about what the return on your investment means to your particular business. And finally, you have to get buy-in. In social media, because it is so public, as Fergus mentioned, because it is real time, it's indexed by Google as the post goes on. You have to get buy-in from your executives. And fundamentally for Comcast, one of the biggest reasons why we are successful in the customer service space on social platforms is because we've got a group of executives who not only embrace social media as a service tool, but they believe in it. They encourage us to go out there. They encourage us to do more. So getting that buy-in from your executive team is really critical. So how do you take this theory? You get the buy-in. How do we go from this theoretical into real social media strategy? So a really big one is because you're creating social, you don't need to start from scratch. You can leverage existing escalation processes, remediation processes, communication processes. Starting from scratch, I think actually sets the wrong tone for setting this thing as a standalone, separate piece. As I mentioned before, we feel that social media is just another feather in our social or our customer service cap. So if you can align with existing processes and not start over, it's going to be a much easier road to really building social into your customer service strategy. Similarly, think about the tools you've got in place: billing, ticketing, remediation, scheduling tools. You don't have to start from scratch, but think about how new tools, be it Twitter, be it Radian6, can integrate into your existing enterprise technology set. A really critical one that we use is, we drive home, is staff it appropriately too. A lot of people think that you need to be gurus on Facebook or an avid tweeter on Twitter. It's not the case. We feel it's important to hire and staff through agents that know your business. When I look at my team, I think the average tenure of my team is about 6 years of field experience or call center experience. They know the products, they know the services, they actually know the platforms, the devices. A great example is you can get someone that could tweet till they're blue in the face. For me, could they reprovision a cable modem? That's a litmus test for me. So staff accordingly. Staff to be able to best support your business and your products. I mentioned this before, but consistency is really key. Comcast feels that with every interaction, with every customer, it should be treated like any other channel. If they pick up the phone and go through your IVR, the knowledge base that's referenced, the answer that consumer gets should be consistent with what they get on Twitter or Facebook or Quora. That consistency is going to create familiar comfortable experiences for your consumers, for your customers, and ultimately lead to a better success when you integrate traditional channels with new technologies. And finally, I mentioned it before, always reference that strategy. We keep it it's glued on every office and cubicle of my team. We look at our strategy, we know why we do certain things, we know how we approach certain things. If you don't leverage your strategy, if you don't reference that, it's very easy to creep. Marketing department will want something, sales will want something, marketing. Stick to your social strategy. That's really key. So as we've talked about the theory to practice at the team level, how do you staff, how do you take an approach, I wanted to highlight some of the things that my team does. And I'll tell you this, I'm lucky to have an incredible team. They make our service approach happen. They're the ones who are there day to day on these tools, engaging with customers. But we all follow this sort of 5-point plan. And the first is presence. Right? If we're going to get onto a tool, we need to be present. How many of you have gone back and read an old blog where you can see that the Phillies won the World Series in 2008? That's great. Go Phillies in 2008. You need to be there. You need to be timely. You need to have a presence. You need to be relevant. Next, and probably one of the most important principles for us and our team is speed. Sometimes it's just as important to be able to be there and have a rapid response, acknowledging the customer's outreach before you have a full answer. A customer who is acknowledged on a social platform in near real time, and that's our goal at Comcast, is to provide near real-time responses on all of the platforms that we support. That's just as meaningful as getting the answer. You've acknowledged the individual or the community possibly. So being there and a quick response is critical. I'm going to skip over the third point and come back to that, but accuracy. One of the real mantras that I gave to my team is no speculation. Comcast is a very intricate, complex infrastructure of how we deliver our voice, video, and data services. A lot of times we'll hear the stance or the phrase on Twitter, Comcast broke the internet, right? It's kind of a broad statement to make from a consumer that we broke the internet, but it's easy to say, well, maybe it's this, to look at a symptom and not fully diagnose it. We go for the facts. Getting your facts straight, engaging with customers with accuracy is very important. If it takes you a few more seconds, a few more minutes to get the right answer once you've acknowledged that consumer, that accuracy is key. And finally, honesty is just a really big one. And sometimes I think honesty and accuracy, you may be able to put them synonymously, but being upfront with your customers, telling them the truth about what's going on is critical. And we found a lot of success. A quick story, Bill Girth, who is the face of our Comcast Cares Twitter handle, wanted to go and celebrate on a Saturday night, not a weekday, but a Saturday night with his mother for her birthday. And I think it was a milestone birthday, like 50 years. On Twitter, publicly, he said, "Hello, everyone. I'm going to celebrate my mother's 50th birthday. I'm going to be gone for a few hours." The response we received was incredible because Bill was upfront and he was honest about what he was doing. The community not only wished his mother a happy birthday, while he was gone, they actually started answering questions on his behalf. So here's a community that grew around our Comcast Cares brand. They believed in what we were doing, and they were actually there to answer other consumers' questions. And I think that really is very telling about how being upfront, honest with consumers can actually have tangible benefits well beyond what you think. And the final one that I want to just go back to is passion. My team is passionate about helping customers. To be on social, because it is so transparent with everyone, that passion needs to show through. And if you can't show that passion on a certain platform, email is sometimes easy because you can take your time and script it. But the real time of Twitter, it can be challenging if you don't show that passion. And that needs to be the passion for what you're doing on a new channel like Twitter or Facebook, but also the passion to help people and help those customers. So that sort of frames up what we've done to go from theory to tactical to actual staffing. The events or the things that we've done over the last few years have had a lot of great benefits. Another story I told Fergus recently was we were mentioned earlier this year in Time magazine as one of the top 140 Twitter feeds in the world. And I will never have a chance to be mentioned next to Lady Gaga again ever in my life. But we did that because it was right for our customers. And ultimately, that customer service on social platforms had a great ripple effect. And it can really do a lot of, give a lot of benefit to your top line, your bottom line, and impacts throughout the organization. So Fergus is going to come back up and share some of that detail with you.
Thanks, Kip. So I don't know about everyone here, but it's really great to hear the first-hand story from a company like Comcast to see what they're really doing to be proactive about service in the social world. We're now going to switch gears and talk about the final point here on our agenda, which is around how social can really start to impact the bottom and top line of your customer service organization and actually your company. So one of the first things here are some of the traditional metrics. Case deflection is a good example of how a social strategy for customer service can really start to reduce the number of calls you may be getting around a certain issue. So for example, if you're getting a repeated issue that your call center, your customers are calling in about, if you can provide the answer on a social channel, not only is it public, but the community starts to see the answer and almost help each other out. We see a lot of these self-service communities forming around a self-service website where the community helps each other out. It's often referred to as the unpaid army. All those enthusiasts, those fans of your product who kind of want to see it succeed and are excited about the next version and those types of progressions that you're delivering out to customers. So case deflection can really be driven if you're answering questions in public, which is driving down the number of calls that come directly into your call center. First contact resolution. We've seen a lot of examples of where people are on social channels, but they haven't got the right tools at the agent's disposal to help them get the answer to the customer. If you have a social customer service strategy where you're bringing both the agent tools and the social channels together, like we saw in the video I played earlier, you can really drive down the speed at which you can actually close cases on social channels and increase the number of first contact resolutions you get. If I step over and start talking about some of the other examples of what you can drive down, handle time goes down much more swiftly if your social agents have access to the same tools as your phone and email agents. Like I said, sometimes when you engage on social channels, you might find that your knowledge base is over here on another screen or your ticketing system. If you can bring them together, you can really drive down the handle time for the social cases. And like we said, the volume of those is on the increase, and it's a real area where you can drive a specific benefit and a cost savings. Case volume, like I mentioned, cases coming in on traditional channels can get driven down by the fact that you're providing richer community information and public answers to the most frequently asked questions. And agent idle time. We see a lot of companies who are putting a toe in the water for a social customer service strategy. They'll say, we may not have an agent that we can afford to put full-time in social, but we do have agent downtime. We do have peaks in call volume, and then we have troughs. And we can put some of those agents on social channels when they're not dealing with peak time in the call center. And that's companies like Zappos do that very thing. One of the top customer service brands in the world. They have agents who move onto social channels in their downtime and monitor those to make sure that they're responding to customer issues as they arise. So I'm going to take 3 examples of Salesforce customers who are using our Service Cloud product and talk just a bit about what they're doing. KLM, that's Royal Dutch Airlines, based in Europe, one of the top airlines and recognized for their social customer strategy, have really made a difference in how they're perceived in terms of being forward-thinking about how they need to treat customers. The airline industry seems to be kind of a bullseye for social media disasters, unfortunately for them, and KLM is proactively becoming a social airline in terms of how they're reaching out to their prospects and their customers. And they've really been recognized for this and kind of seen their customer sat scores go up as a result. Starbucks, another customer from Salesforce, who have their My Starbucks Idea site, which is a full, vibrant community of Starbucks fans, customers, people who drink Starbucks every day, and are providing feedback about the experience in the Starbucks stores, what they think of the drinks, new drinks they'd like to see, even the famous green stir stick that everybody probably knows to stop the coffee spilling on your car seat. That came from My Starbucks Idea. That idea was sourced from there. So the company feels like that Starbucks is engaged. They're actually really keen to hear what customers think and hear from the community about how they can provide a better service experience and improve their product. And the final example here is Dell. And Dell, again, is an example of a Salesforce customer with its Ideastorm.site, which is another social community where people can voice opinions about what they think Dell could be doing on the product front to deliver better products or even improve the ones they have, and maybe new ideas for products. For example, Dell got the idea of doing a laptop with a Linux on it right from their Ideastorm community. Another example of Dell engaging in the conversation to find out what they wanted and the products that Dell could better serve the customer base with. With that in mind, I'm going to bring Kip back up here to talk a bit about what some of the benefits have been for Comcast as well, and he'll take us through a couple of different examples. Kip.
Yeah, thanks. So you look at bottom line, you look at cost savings, you look at margin growth, you look at top line and revenue generation. But the incremental benefits that we've seen have been vast within our organization and with our consumers. So the first one, initially we went from very reactive service, and we're starting to grow into more of a proactive service strategy. How can we anticipate issues through our existing operation systems at our centers of excellence, our NOCs, our ROCs, and take that by listening to consumers and start to better inform the other aspects of our organization as to what's going on with customers. Additionally, with that proactive service, we're starting to expand our presence. Now, we're not doing that of we get onto every new tool that's launched every week out of Silicon Valley, but we're measuring the same way I said before, we're measuring where our customers are. And if we can get on new tools, something like Quora, which is essentially a community-driven, expert-oriented Q&A, we can be there as our customers get there and hopefully be there before they get there so that proactively we have a presence there. Secondly, we've actually seen a real benefit in our communication and collaboration within Comcast. This 360-degree feedback cycle has really improved the way that social media from our servicing perspective has started to drive improved dialogue with PR, with marketing, and innovative product design. So how do we actually take the feedback that, like I mentioned before, this raw feedback from consumers, and feed it back into our organization to create a more ubiquitous cycle with the teams that really collaborate together on a day-to-day basis. Social customer strategy is one of the drivers of that. And finally, how do we take this feedback? How do we take the voice of the customer and build it into our products and services? So when we receive feedback, and the screenshot here shows one of our interactive TV guides, by hearing the feedback from consumers across these social platforms, we're actually able to make a real difference in our product, in our processes, in our outreach to consumers. And that's where the voice of the consumer is really a catalyst for change, and we're looking at how that continues to become a greater and greater influence at Comcast.
Awesome. Thanks, Kip. I think one of the final things I'd like to underscore is that from the conversations we have at Salesforce with customer service executives, one of the things we're hearing is that social media is a catalyst for a broader conversation across their company. They're finding that the contact center folks are in discussions with other groups that maybe that they have previously had kind of a silo with, or that they weren't interacting with. And so, if I could just advance the slide here, there's a picture that looks more like this evolving, where the customer is, of course, at the center of the picture. But service is just one of the groups that is interacting on these new social channels. We call this kind of like the way the social enterprise is evolving. So customers have gone social, and companies are now trying to catch up to meet them there. And whether it's on the Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter channels, or it's your salespeople, how they're talking to prospects in these public forums, or your employees, how they're using social channels, or of course, like we said up the top there, the service channels. All of these are becoming more of a holistic approach to social, as opposed to maybe just a grassroots one-off by a specific department. All with the picture of the customer at the center. It's not the case anymore that everything you know about the customer is just stored in your customer database. There's a lot more real-time information out there about your customer. They're voicing the things they're concerned about, the things they care about, the new things they'd like to see, how you can improve your experience for them. And all of that can be combined into what we call a social customer profile that really reflects who your customer is in the social world, not just in your customer service database behind the scenes in your contact center. We have, just to recap what we've gone through here today, we've talked about how the world is going social, the speed at which it's doing so, and how contact centers are now required to kind of have some response in how they engage. Second of all, Kip walked us through what Comcast is doing and how it's gone social in its strategy and some of the benefits it's seeing and how it got there. And then finally, some of the top line and the bottom line benefits that we've seen. This is kind of a recap. We've one final thing we'd like to leave everybody with here today, and that's kind of a quick cheat sheet of things you could take with you to actually maybe cherry pick some of these things that you could apply in your own contact center world. And we're going to skip through these pretty quickly, but obviously you guys can take these home as some kind of reference if it's useful to kind of take the first steps. I want to underscore what Kip said, first of all. Start by just listening. Like someone says, you don't walk into a conversation in real life and just start talking without hearing what the conversation is about, to kind of tune in to see what the context is and what the topic is. So start by listening before you take your first steps to begin responding.
And I mentioned it before. Define your plan, define your strategy, and stick to it. If you do that, you will have a much greater opportunity for success. But share that strategy with the other organizations with whom you work on a regular basis. That strategy is really the foundation for all of the tactical approaches you take across social platforms to deliver customer service.
Great. The next thing is a bit about choosing the agents. Kip mentioned a bit about how at Comcast they really solve for agents that are product savvy, and we see different customers or companies taking a different approach. Some want more social savvy, some want more product savvy, of course. All of them would like to have maybe both. But the main thing is for your agents to know what your voice is online, train them well so they know how to represent your company.
Yep. Mentioned it before, be there and be rapid. That speed is one of the most critical things that we found to show the engagement with the customer and to show you're there to help. So respond early across all the platforms that you support on social.
Great. This is kind of my personal favorite on the list. This is number 5. Be authentic and respectful. This is still customer service. Just because it's a newer channel, you're still interacting with a customer of yours who is valued and expects to get great service for you. It's just the same as any other channel. It just may feel a bit different to begin. It has the added stake, if you can think about it, or the raised stakes, that it's being viewed more publicly. So whether you like it or not, it's all being perceived in public, and it's your opportunity to do right by the customer, provide a great experience.
The next one we dabbled in, but it's a really big point to drive home. Even private messages, emails, direct messages on Twitter, direct contact on Facebook, everything in this world is public. So a quick litmus test that you can use. Think before you post. What would happen, and you can tell how it was raised, but what would your mother think if she got a hold of this post? Right? Secondly, what might the press do if they took this post out of context and used it? So since this is public, since it's indexed real time, think before you post.
Great. Add a social media policy to your employee handbook. We've seen some of the large banks in the States do this. They have an employee handbook. Part of it now is their social media policy. Who's entitled to tweet? What's the voice? Is it certain departments? Are there certain corporate statements and positioning and things that people on these social channels need to be aware of? And is it an informal style of communication, or is it more formal? But have a stated approach for how you want to be represented by your company on social channels.
Yeah. Similar to point 3, having the right agents is part of the equation. Giving the agents, empowering them with the right tools is really key. Making sure that they can be successful in the way they engage with customers ultimately will lead to a successful customer service strategy on social platforms.
Awesome. A couple more to go here. Being able to record the interactions you have on social channels is really important also. So sometimes you might find yourself what we affectionately call firefighting, just trying to quell a rumor or stop a thread. But once it's over, the interaction is lost and there's no record kept of it. Try to have a way to record what's happening on social channels, just like you do with phone, record it in a case management system, just like you would an email interaction.
Yeah. And finally, there's 2 schools of thought, and they're starting to merge about social media. I give smiles versus the quantifiable, how many smiles do you give? We think it's really key to measure what's going on in social. You wouldn't run a call center without understanding volume and detailed KPIs. We feel it's critical to do the same here. If you're going to create a presence, know what's going on, measure it, be able to report on it back to your executive team, and that really can help drive success by understanding where you are and how you're engaging with customers.
Great. So that is basically the conclusion of our presentation today. I first of all want to thank ICMI here for partnering with this. This has been a great event for Salesforce. I want to thank Kip for joining us here to talk about what Comcast is doing. The Salesforce booth is on the show floor if you want to come up and ask me more questions or any of the Salesforce folks here today to understand more of the things we've talked about. And I'm told that dessert is also in the exhibit hall, so that's where you go to get the last part of your meal for the day. Thank you so much for your attention, everybody.
Thank you
for joining with us, and we'll see you. Have a great conference. Thank you very much.
Thanks.